Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Jnana Murtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om. Adorations to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Yoga Vasistha in Sthiti Prakarana, the sections 18 onwards. And presently, Sage Vasishtha is giving insight into the illusory nature of the world, the reality of the self, and the attainment of liberation. Let's follow then the study. Many are able to gain verbal knowledge of Brahman. That is, they are able to speak of the identity of the soul with Brahman, but they are far from realizing the truth. This is a great obstacle into spiritual goal, attaining the goal. To stay trapped with the illusion of verbosity. Lots of palabras. One person says, I believe in God. The other says, no, God does. God is Maya. Brahman, the absolute. The other says, no, Nirvana, zero. Each one has collected a volume of information to prove his point. I'm giving a very simple way to so many philosophical systems. It will take you a whole year to really go through all the details to come to the conclusion. And each system tries to prove its authenticity over all other systems. That's the verbal process. Mahabharata brings this in the form of a parable. Pandavas face the problem. See, they are living, I'm just giving a reminding way. In a very intricate story, Pandavas are the soul equipped with divine qualities, but they live in a family that has invited them in Ekchakra city. Ekchakra city is, once you enter the city, you are in an Ekchakar. Can't get out of it. This is the world process. Once you have entered, you can't say, well, I don't like this body. Well, don't like these parents. You have no choice. All right, all this is agreed. I don't like to age. You have no choice. And most terrible, to become the food for death. So that's Ekchakra Nagari. And this Ekchakra Nagari is under the control of Bakasur, a demon called Baka. Baka is a bird that goes on sounding too much. And in normal language, when a person talks too much, kya bak bak karta hai. The disease of verbosity, lot of words. And people are gripped by words, not reality. And Bhima, the strength based on faith, soul that has developed profound faith, and faith has become dynamic. Bhima is that character who goes to become his breakfast. Because according to the story, every family they have all well arranged plan. Every family must give food on one of the 7 days. And different families will have their time, opportunity, their tragedy to meet with his demand. And when it comes to the turn of a particular family, they have to sacrifice one of them. And families, everyone is dear in the family. But that's the story of the world. You live in Ekchakra Nagari. You can't move away and make any changes in your personality. You didn't want 5 feet tall, you want 6 feet. I'm joking. Can't make changes. But another point, what you cannot make any change in that, every family has to suffer from tragic loss. Death of someone goes on happening. And ultimately, death of the very person who is studying the world about all that. So, that's what is brought into Yoga Vasistha. Many are able to gain verbal knowledge of Brahman. That verbal knowledge puts you in the predicament of that Bakasura story. In spite of all your knowledge, it seems that Ekchakri Nagar had created a settlement with the demon. And settlement was that the demon will not attack them, but they will send when their time comes. At that time it seemed like a good resolution. But that's not a resolution. If verbal words give you consolation, then that type of resolution, no matter what consolation you are enjoying, you have to go through birth, death. I will not go further in that, but simple point to understand. Do not stay just with words. Even in that level of words, verbal knowledge, you must receive the knowledge under proper guidance, so that you are not just moving from one theory to another theory and getting your mind become like a Google. Google contains all the news, but doesn't get liberated. It's under the control of your fingers. Many are able to gain verbal knowledge of Brahman. That is, they are able to speak of the identity of the soul with Brahman. But they are far from realizing this truth. Such verbal knowledge is like the painting of a fire. It cannot give heat or warmth. Think of it. Weather change has come and your electricity has failed. But your 3-year-old baby is a good artist. Mommy, here is a fire. Puts a wonderful painting of fire. That will not resolve the problem. So therefore, one should develop a kind of vigilance. Am I just sitting with words, or am I going beyond the words? Am I just saying Rasgulla, Rasgulla? Sweet, so sweet. Or you are actually finding Rasgulla or eating it. Theory must lead you to practice. If practical aspect does not follow your theory, then your theory is just a big headache. It's a massive information on your head. Tons of theory. You become like a donkey with a big load. But with an ounce of practice, you begin to come out like a swan. And all the load shifts away. Section 19. The essential reality behind the 3 states of consciousness. That's the topic. 3 states of consciousness is you waking, dream, deep sleep. But what underlies these 3? These 3 will come and go. But what backs all these 3 that remains invariable? These 3 states are variables. The reality, truth is invariable. So what is that invariable, immutable, absolute truth? In simpler illustrations, remember the cinema show. Behind all that you are experiencing, the thrill of the show, the reality is a screen, the curtain, whatever you call it. Similarly, the reality behind all your experiences is consciousness. Put it in more extended form, Sat Chit Ananda. You are Sat, no matter how things are. Your mind may be extremely in a negative way and may think of everything you want is as if dumped. But no matter how much things are dumped, you are never dumped. The I am in you remains exactly the same. If this understanding were to develop in your mind, then you are gaining a profound foundation for spiritual movement. And that's the purpose of satsanga. Sat, in order to discover, realize, and have that experience, I am not a mortal personality. No matter how mind may paint, no matter whichever way, it may paint a very joyous picture of your fortune and success and all that. You may have a whole idea of writing a whole book of your success. But behind all that, one simple point, all this is perishable. Your sons and grandsons may remember you, but great-great-grandsons won't remember. So, but this is the magic played by your mind. The reality in you is not what mind brings out. The reality remains Sat. That's what you are. And Satsanga enables you to open the door towards that big news. I am immortal. Immortality is not an ordinary news. Even a little touch of immortality takes your mind, makes your mind free of loads and loads of worries. So, and then the second aspect, I am pure consciousness. Same Sat, now you are viewing it in another angle. Consciousness, awareness. Because if the first stage, immortality, is viewed by your mind, stripped of awareness, then we are looking at a mountain. I'm a mountain that is not going to die. Inert. But not so. You are like this shining sun, the light of awareness. That awareness, that's Chit, Sat-Chit. And climax this process, Anand, absolute joy. The whole world is, every little creature is picking on happiness, hopping for happiness. Ants, bees, cockroaches, animals, birds, human beings. All are hopping up for happiness. But the reality is absolute happiness, bliss, ananda, satchidananda. That's what mind is to be led to discover. And that movement of the mind is intuitional movement. First, it is led by intellectual movement. But intellectual again is under control, under good guidance. And then finally, through practice of integral yoga in life, you attain liberation. Then it is no longer an intellectual, but your direct experience. Sri Vasishtha continued, just as a seed gives rise to a mighty tree, even so Brahman has given rise to the world process. Seed, allegorical term. A mighty tree comes out of just a little seed. Can you imagine the power of a little seed? Seed of a banyan tree. Seed of any biggest tree you can think of. Seed is very small. And if you cut it, you find nothing in it. But when you sow it, it becomes a tree. And that tree brings about countless little fruits, berries. Each fruit contains so many seeds. Each seed has the power of generating a big banyan tree. Imagine, one little seed can inhabit this entire globe and can send out, if there are other world systems, export them. It can fill the entire universe. One little seed. That's, if you think it very sensitively, you don't have to go through many scriptures to understand the role of God. How much power, how much grace is there potentially hidden in just a little seed. But now, turn your attention not to the illustration of seed, because the seed brings out a tree and the tree is not permanent. Seed here is Brahman, and mind creates a magic of the tree of the world process. The entire tree is created by Maya, deluded mind, out of Brahman, Brahman being the seed, the essence, experiences a world that has no end, no beginning. Brahman has given rise to this world process. However, in the case of the seed, as the tree emerges, it ceases to exist. While in the case of Brahman, he remains unaffected. The difference between what you are using as a allegorical symbol, seed, that no matter whatever you think of a seed, in order to bring out a tree, it has to break itself and disintegrate. Then a sprout comes. Brahman doesn't disintegrate. And the whole world comes out of it. It's the other way around. The whole world comes out in the realm of Maya. Brahman remains the absolute reality. And that becomes the goal for every individual soul. Practice sadhana with that understanding. Aham vrikshasya reriva. I am the terminator of this world tree. No exterminator. I am. Just as in a plantain stem, there is layer after layer of leaves. In the same way, this world process is constituted of layers of illusions. And enclosed in these layers, numerous souls abide like tiny worms and insects. This all allegorical way to explain the world that every soul is so proud of. Every soul is proud of what? The body, mind, intellect, ego. Mixed together, it is like a plantain stem. This plantain will go and give you bananas. I'm not talking about literal bananas. Bananas are quite healthy, but allegorical bananas have no substance. You have to get apples. But leaving the humor behind. Probably that humor came from that Vedantic constant quotation of plantains. So layers and layers of illusions. You start asking, who am I? Your mind goes after physical body. This is me. But now you are asked to look again. Then you begin to understand, if you didn't have senses, your idea, I am the body, will be just ridiculous. And if you didn't have life, that also I am the body will be ridiculous. So first layer, I am not the body. What is behind the body? Life force, prana, vital force. What is behind the vital force? Mind and senses. So body is not reality in itself, it is being interpreted by your vital force. Vital force is not reality in itself, it is being interpreted by your mind and senses. Mind and senses themselves are not distinct reality, they are being thought out by your intellect. Intellect ego-based. Intellect ego-based movement is supported by your unconscious. And beyond unconscious, there is absolute self. So you have to peel off. I'm not the body, one peel. I'm not the prana, next peel. And each time you are looking for, what can I eat? As you go on peeling. I'm joking. But even mind and intellect, you are not. All peeled out, then what left? If mind is enlightened, what is left is, that's the absolute truth. That has no descriptions, no names and forms. But if your mind is not advanced, you are left with a big riddle. There is nothing. The whole banana came, it was a whole big thing, and you went on removing layers, and you didn't find anything. I mean, the banana process. Though being essentially Brahman, on the basis of karma and upasana, every individual soul has the possibility of rising to the heights of gods or falling into lesser planes of animals and worms. That's Yoga Vasistha's style. Lots of ideas come into very little, few words. Every soul is involved with karma, action. Upasana, mind that creates a loving sentiment for finding a goal. So not only do effort, but your mind is also involved in two things, focused state and an imagination stage. Focusing process is called dhyana, meditation. Imagining, letting loose your fancy, that's called devout meditation, called upasana. Dhyana, when we say upasana term, two things are blended in it. Concentration and devotion. Meditation and devotion. Meditation and devotion, these are yogic terms, but whether you are yogi or not, these are operating in your mind all the time. You're meditating on what you want to have, and you are acting. Your action and your meditation go on day by day. Action and meditation, which I have described, two aspects in it. Focusing the mind and imagining your joyous goal. But the upasana that is practiced by the masses, karma and upasana, are led by without proper understanding, led by avivek, lack of discriminative knowledge, the lack of knowledge of what really you want to accomplish. When you gain that type of insight, which doesn't come all at once, but progressively, little by little, when you begin to develop awareness that you look for the goal of life. Now the same karma now turns into karma yoga. Well, how should I do my duties? There you go into the details of swadharma, paradharma, and how the duty you do itself is a part of yoga. How you do it, that's profoundly related to your spiritual movement. No matter what duty you have to do, even if you have to just make tea. I'm putting joking, but don't take it literally. There are lots of good things to do in life, including the tea. So action becomes karma yoga, and normal experience of loving someone, but the love aspect is always blended with lots of delusion, love of mirage. The pursuit of your love that turns into upasana, meditating upon Rama, Krishna, different deities with a special feeling. That's the picture of upasana. Upasana is a blend of meditation and devotion. A compound, not ordinary mixture. You know the compound and ordinary mixture, the difference. Hydrogen and oxygen can put together in a balloon, and balloon will stay fat. Compound them, they become water. So, this compounding aspect is important. So again, summarizing the fact, karma yoga, actions you have to do, upasana, devotion and meditation, and then jnana, understanding. 3 paths. They are called kanda, karma kanda, upasana kanda and jnana kanda. The Vedas have brought them. These kandas, they can be negative. The negative is for you to know what you have to avoid. And they should turn into healthy kanda, then they become a yoga. Karma yoga, upasana yoga becomes 2 yogas, bhakti yoga, dhyana yoga, and jnana kanda becomes jnana yoga. All yogas, more simplified, is just yoga. But to remind you, it's called integral yoga. All these, again, words that can give you a clearer understanding. All are involved in these 3 points, whether you are yogi or not. But the difference is when you are involved recklessly in these 3, you are being led into karmic process in a reckless manner. You are a human being in this life. Next life can come into a fox embodiment. Shedding the fox embodiment to come back again. Yeah, even as a king, a powerful politician. All types can go on happening. That's the karma and upasana negatively being done fetters a person in a very profound way. So it is not an ordinary joke. Look around you, all souls, how they are captured, all different predicaments they are facing. The answer behind it is karma. Their karma and upasana have been directed in a negative way. Now, the message is, learn from that the power behind your karma and upasana. Direct that power to your positive goal, to attain liberation. Once you direct that power to the positive, you are now having another advantage, power of grace. Negative is the pursuit of darkness. Positive is pursuit of light, from darkness to light. So the moment you open a slightest hole to welcome light, things that you cannot imagine, in the realm of self-effort, your mind has calculated how many germs are here, what I should do, etc. Self-effort. Grace, the self-effort opens a little window. Now all your calculations are blown away. And your effort is rewarded in 1,000 times more than you imagine. So a positive movement is a powerful movement. You are being led from falsehood to truth, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Those who worship the gods attain godhood, while those who worship yakshas, they attain yakshahood. And then it goes on. Puranas give you the whole different stages of embodiment. Embodiment as a human being. Now, human concept of happiness. Think of a human being who has followed the worldly concept, and it is interpreted as nobody in the world opposes you, you are the ruler of the whole earth. And you are young. You don't have suffering even for one day or any headache. And no one disobeys you. Consider this one unit of happiness. If you are born as a Gandharva, you will have 100 units of this, what I have described. But you are not satisfied because there are many Gandharvas. And then you are a Deva in another level of spiritual being, 100 times greater. So it goes on describing series until Brahma comes, and Brahma is considered multi-million times the happiness that I have described, unit happiness. But all that, having described for a long time, Vedanta terms it alpam. It's little. All that is gripped by time, space, causation. All this is not everlasting. It's the realm of Maya. But if you continue your abhyasa, your practice of karma and upasana in a lesser way, then that's your predicament. You can be human, you can be Gandharva, you can go into a little higher level, and so forth. But that is not your ideal. This whole movement is called bhoga. Mind goes on looking for where can I find most happiness and more secure. As long as the mind is looking that way, it's called bhoga movement. And you depend upon bhagya to have bhoga. Bhagya is astrological chart giving you whether you have fortune or misfortune. But if you are well guided, you don't go after bhoga. Your mind captures the joy of discovering who am I. Mind wakes up, because all other aspirations are kid aspirations. Adult aspiration, who am I? What is most important? I am. Why can't you recognize this closest to you? I am first, before you go after all that. And then that movement is called apavarga. That's bhoga and moksha. Bhoga, enjoyments that bring your soul back into the world again and again. Moksha, out of this embodiment. Immortality. Eternally rid of cycle of birth and death. That is the goal. That's the purpose of all religions at the climax stage. By repeatedly running after the objects of the world, the consciousness in a person becomes deeply involved in the world process. But when the involvement is curbed or restrained, It is capable of modifying itself to anything by act of will. Simple way to understand. Whatever you are experiencing, it is responsibility lies in your own soul. Your soul has been capable of creating all that now you are encountering. The same soul has the capacity to undo all and attain liberation. But what is needed, soul has to be endowed with the right will. What type of will the soul should live through the embodied state? Normal type of willing is due to ignorance. The soul simply wants more happiness, more pleasure of the senses. And if that is so, then that's where your karma will lead you to. But if you develop subtler, your will is not to go after bhoga. May I attain liberation, moksha. This is called Dhruva Sankalpa. Dramatized in Mahabharata as Bhishma's will. The will to attain liberation. But in order to allow your innate mystic will to manifest, what's needed is a repeated effort. And let me remind you of the quotation from the Gita. Dhyayato vishayan punsa sangasteshu pajayate. People go on remembering, go on bringing the thoughts of objects in their mind. They are doing japa of objects. ईश्वर का ध्यान करो या विषयों का ध्यान. Bring God in your mind, that is God's ईश्वर का ध्यान. Meditation of God, on God. But lacking that, mind is always doing dhyan. It's always meditating upon objects of the world. But whatever you go on bringing to your mind, that takes a firm root in your mind. Dhyayato vishayan punsa. I always give a simple illustration. You are passing by, walking, just enjoying the nature. But suddenly you see your neighbor has the best of car. And then you look at your car, it seems you don't do sweekar. You don't agree with your car. A simple idea floats in your mind. How wonderful. I should have that type. I should be progressive. But it passes on, day goes by. Next day, you go the same way. Third day, you plan to go the same. Fourth day, you want to stay and look at the car and make notes. Fourth day, you want to meet the person who owns it. And so forth. There comes a time now, you have borrowed money. You have done all Google research. And you have to actually get the car. So when you come to that, it is called Sangasteshu Pajayati. By constantly thinking of that object, now it has become a part of your personality, your own limb. You can't separate yourself from it. Sangat sanjayate kama. Previously, you were the only one to think. Now, you and your car. Bring extension in your thought. Kamas. And since your mind has so many now ideas, any obstruction comes, anger develops. When you live through your life, when things are done so easily, and then suddenly one little trouble that makes you wait, even for half an hour, it brings out all your anger. Fear that. I would say interesting psychology. So ultimately we end up being damaged by anger again and again. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Now it becomes anger keeps your mind deluded. And ultimately it results in your degraded movement. Pradashyati, the soul goes on degrading itself. Buddhi Vransh, and so forth. I'm not going to details. Likewise, if you adopt positive movement, every day you pass by and find a temple, or if not, come back to your own puja room. Every act that you start, first go into your puja room, read certain prayers or recite prayers, and then you begin to develop how much you are helped by, inspired by God and your worship. That becomes now a powerful reality in your mind. Then your mind goes on developing what will be if I am in the level of sattva patti. Mind becomes filled with sattva. And if I go further, and that leads your intellect to become intuitive, not buddhi vranshat. Intellect does not degrade itself, but now blossoms into intuition. Sri Rama asked, O sage, what brings about the intensification of worldliness in one's consciousness, and what keeps it in a simple childlike state? Simple question comes in the mind of the aspirant. Rama is echoing that question. That you get and hear how it is wonderful to be a simple childlike, not childish, childlike simplicity. And not to keep the mind burdened with all those worldly ideas. So what makes your mind draw all the load of worldly problems? And what can make your mind free of that and become cute, childlike? then keep your fingers crossed. The answer will be coming. Om Triambakam Yamhe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukubandhana Mrityor Mukshayama Mritat Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namah Shivaya.